unification of the German state today. In order to do that, we're going to go back to Napoleon ruling Europe. He got rid of the Holy Roman Empire. He creates his Confederation of the Rhine. The longer Napoleon controlled Europe, the more the German-speaking people start to think that perhaps the German state should be ruled by a German, not by a Frenchman. We're going to see the development of the Prussians here and the growth of Prussia, which will lead the way to unification. So this topic is really mid-19th century European nationalism. Again, we go back to that map of 1815, which is the peace conference that deals with the defeat of Napoleon, met for about a year in the city of Vienna, the Austrian Empire. And you have your same states we looked at with Italian unification. France's boundaries are reduced some. We have those yellow states of Sardinia, Piedmont, which is the key towards Italian unification. Well, let's talk about Germany. Germany is found in the center part of Europe. In this map, we're looking at something called the German Confederation. Napoleon had called it something else. I want you to notice it's blue, dark green, and light green. The German states are the light green. Generally, the dark green is Prussia specifically, and Austria is a Germanic-speaking empire. At least 25% of it is German-speaking. And we have Russia on the far side of the map here. So the real debate is who should unify Germany. I need you to go back upstairs. Good job. Please, go. Yes, you can have ice cream for dessert tonight. I'm so sorry, kids. We're going to keep going, though. So if we're going to unify the German state, the great question is who should unify it? Should it be Prussia? Should it be Austria? Austria, again, has about 25% of its people spoke German. The Prussian state, Prussia, is German-speaking also, but it's not a contiguous state. So we're actually going to see Prussia lead the way. The other option for unifying the German state would be without either one of them, because they're both kind of larger states that would dominate the German state. So Prussia ends up leading the way. We can look back and talk about this thing called the Zollverein, which was done in 1834. And this is a free market or free trade zone. Perhaps we should just say free trade zone. You saw people trading. You see the development of industrialization in the German states. And Prussia forms the Zollverein specifically to exclude Austria. That didn't seem like a big deal perhaps in the 1830s and 1840s, but I got to tell you, once Germany's unified, we look back and we say this was an important step. In Prussia, we had this king, King William I. He asked one specific person, his name was Otto von Bismarck, to be his chancellor. Now, prior to becoming chancellor, William will tell Bismarck that he and the parliament cannot agree over spending for his government. The parliament kept rejecting his budget because William wants to put more money into the military. You can see William here with his military uniform on, and that's part of the tradition of the Prussian state, a very strong military. Bismarck comes in, and Bismarck's one of my favorite people in history here. He's known for a couple of things here, or his nicknames here. The Iron Chancellor, for a famous speech when he says blood and iron will form a unified German state, and his use of what's called realpolitik. So you see him here in professional clothes, and you see him in his military uniform. So Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. He's known for a couple of funny quotes that I always like to show students, which I find to be completely interesting. So the Germans are known for sausages. When I've traveled there, you do have different sausages or tastes of sausage, different parts of Germany that you're in. But I love the second point here. Never believe anything until officially denied. If you just think for a few minutes about people you know in our modern media, like Hollywood or pop culture, yeah, once they deny it, you know it's really true. But his really important quote here is this third one where he talks about how will we have a unified German state. And he says it's going to be through blood and iron, through military and industrial development is what he's meaning here. He's referring to a mistake made in 1848 and 1849, which we didn't really cover. I only briefly mentioned it when we talked about Italianification. But in those years, there was revolts all across Europe, an attempt to unify states, and it fails in the German state. It fails in the Italian state. He's like, yeah, speeches, majority decisions, that means steps in democracy. That's not how it's going to be done. He wants to use force and industrialization, blood and iron. So this is another map we want to kind of consider. I know I throw a lot of maps at you. Just to look at this, like where was the German language being spoken? You can see part of the Austrian Empire and this Prussian in the purple. Austria in green, Prussia in purple. Now the state of Prussia is also known as Brandenburg Prussia, I might suggest to you. Brandenburg is actually that territory right around Berlin for all of my students sitting in German class. Now, Prussia envisions a German state without Austria. And Bismarck, in order to do this, is going to use war. The first war he's going to launch is up here in the north against Denmark. He's going to try to get back the German-speaking territory of Schleswig-Holstein. He's going to kick Austria out of affairs, and he's going to have to deal with France and get these southern German states to look to Prussia as a leader and as the leader of the German state. So I mentioned his first war is against the Danes. It's Prussia and Austria together against Denmark, and this is not very difficult. And again, the territory we're talking about is the territory in the northern part of the German state, Schleswig and Holstein. This is very minor, not a big deal, but you see Bismarck willing to use war to get what he wants. Here's his military leader, von Moltke. The second war is between Austria and Prussia, and so we also can call this the 7 Weeks' War, which meant it was very brief. Now, in this case, it's Bismarck here on the right in the cartoon fighting the Austrian Franz Joseph here, I believe. You have the Danes saying, "Fight it out, gentlemen, I'm pleasure to look on." So the Danes are watching the Austrians and the Germans. But I want to remind you, this is a 7 Weeks' War. Prussia defeats Austria, but Prussia does not crush it. Prussia does not go into the capital and destroy it or burn it down. So with this then, Bismarck can kick the Austrians out of German affairs. And he's trying to balance here both peace and war. And he's created a North German state under Prussian control. His final step will deal with something called the Ems Dispatch. And this is a little bit confusing, but bear with me here. His final step has to deal with France. How does he get the southern German states to look to Prussia for help? You got to make Napoleon, the French leader, got to get Napoleon to attack you. So how does he do this? Well, a cousin to the Kaiser, William if you're English, Wilhelm if you're German, a cousin to him was supposed to become the leader of Spain after revolt. And this, his name was Prince Leopold von Hohenzollern. But France will object this. France does not want a Prussian prince down in Spain because, think back to your map, then France would be surrounded by these Prussians or Hohenzollerns, really. So France protest. The French ambassador asks Kaiser William to apologize to Napoleon III, which he does, but Bismarck, he kind of edits the telegram that William will send to the French, and it insults Napoleon, and then he goads Napoleon III into war. The whole point here is Bismarck does something to irritate the French, to get the French to kind of attack the Prussians, and Prussia's ready for this war, ready to crush it. So in the Franco-Prussian War, the Prussians will be able to defeat the French. They're able to march right into France. We're going towards the capital of Paris here. Now, most of the countryside of France will surrender. Paris holds on for quite some time. We have a lot of propaganda put out about how the French were abused by the Germans by this. You can just see through some of this art at the time. And at the peace, you see Napoleon III here on the left and Bismarck's on the right. At the end of this war, the French government does collapse, and that was led by Napoleon III, the nephew of Napoleon that we talked about earlier. And they create a republic without a king or emperor. The Italians will get to take Rome and make it part of the Italian state, and Russia's just going to simply put warships into the Black Sea. France will have to pay for the war, and it'll be occupied by German troops, and the French are able to do this at this point. Like the indemnity or the reparations wasn't so great, and the French will have to give territory called Alsace-Lorraine. So that's the border states between France and Germany. A really interesting region where the languages are very mixed, and I'm sure the loyalties are mixed between the French and the Germans even still today. This is a beautiful coronation picture done. It's often cited. You have the Kaiser up on top of the fourth step there. But in the center of the picture in white is Bismarck. Bismarck was the puppet master. Bismarck was the man behind this unification. The brains, much like Cavour was in the Italian states. The noble class of Prussia are called the Junkers, the Prussian Junkers. And they will swear their loyalty to the Kaiser, not to the German state, but to the Kaiser. That's important to understand. We see a German flag created. And we're going to skip these two slides. He's anti-Catholic, his socialist program. You see him, he's going to duke it out with the Catholic Church. We're not going to worry about it so much during this time period here. But we want to look at this modern German state. It was founded really around this blue-purple color here under the Kingdom of Prussia, We see the light green states join in by 1866, the dark green states join by 1867, all in the northern part of the German state. The beige is colored here, yellow color, whatever you want to call it, these come in 1871 after the defeat of France. Now, your southern German states looked to Prussia for leadership, looked to Prussia for support, because the French had invaded, and that's exactly what Bismarck wanted. Bismarck was a practitioner of realpolitik. He used war to get what he wants. And of course, Alsace-Lorraine is taken when Prussia, or the German states, defeated France. Bismarck has the Kaiser proclaimed Kaiser in the Hall of Mirrors in the French Palace of Versailles. Bismarck will rule for a period of time. Eventually, along comes Kaiser William or William II. Now, he's your Kaiser through World War II. William knew there had to be one leader, and so he is going to ask Bismarck to leave his role in politics. We call it dropping the pilot. Kaiser William II is the guy that leads you then up through World War I. Under him, we can see continued industrial growth. We see the Kaiser being opposed to democratic reforms. You see the Germans claim lands in Africa and Asia, and he strengthened the military. This is actually Kaiser William II.